Hey, I'm Post Credits Dean, and today I'm going to be talking about the Batman. This is going to be a spoiler-free review, so I'm going to have a separate section where I'm talking about spoilers. But for now, keeping it vague and clean. Also got my Batman sweatshirt on, excited to talk about this because there's so much to get into. Overall, I'm just going to be talking vague stuff about the film because I don't want to get into too much specific detail. But even if I'm not doing spoilers, there's so much that I can actually get into. And thanks so much for being a part of this. If you're here watching, this is one of my first videos that I've posted on YouTube, and what a great place to start with the Batman. And I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna grow as I get through it. Any feedback, let me know as well. All right, let's get into it. My overall thoughts of this film. Firstly, Matt Reeves pitched this as a detective noir thriller, like a psychological thriller film based on like Seven or Zodiac. And in those frames, it really does stick the landing. This is a really gripping psychological horror thriller film where they're trying to track down a serial killer. And I've been following Matt Reeves as he's been part of this project. Originally it was supposed to be, to give you guys a little history, this was supposed to be Ben Affleck's solo project when he was working with Zack Snyder's Justice League. And he had a very different idea of what the solo Batman film should be like. I've read the script about it. It looks like it would have been a great film. But as you may or may not know, Affleck went through a lot of difficult moments when shooting for Warner Brothers, and somewhere I think in maybe 2015, 2017, Matt Reeves was announced, and he kind of was able to. Initially, he was picking up Affleck's script, but then he was able to tilt it towards his favor in a different solo film. And his idea was to explore the detective side of Batman. The world's greatest detective hasn't been explored before. So in terms of that, Reeves absolutely nails it. He has given us such a great fun thriller. In terms of a Batman story, I remember watching this in the starting few scenes of the movie, and I was like, this is a unique Batman story. I haven't seen this kind of Batman story before. And the only other time I felt that way was when I saw the Lego Batman. I remember that thinking this exact same thought while watching that movie. Lego Batman is a very loyal Batman film to the character, and it shows us a different side of it. And the Batman does the same thing. It takes a character that we all think we know about and then shows us an element of his origin that we don't really think about much, or it hasn't been explored on the big screen as much. So without spoilers, the story is pretty much year two of Batman's journey. They make it very clear in the trailers as well as in the first few scenes of the movie that he is just starting out and he's 2 years in. So he does have some idea of what he's doing. He does have experience, but the film also goes to show that it's a lot more ground that he needs to cover before he becomes a Batman that we know. And there's going to be a lot of comparisons with the Nolan trilogy and the Dark Knight. So I kind of want to make it the difference pretty clear, at least from my perspective. Nolan's trilogy feels very much like a Nolan set of films where Batman is the main character, as opposed to Reeves' version where this feels like a Batman film. This is the Batman for a reason, and it genuinely feels like from start to finish, we see the Batman as he should be. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember reading it that Reeves really wanted to make sure that every scene in the film had Batman in it. Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about Robert Pattinson as Batman. Straight up, I think he's done an incredible job. I don't think anyone's really complaining about this. He does have a very broody, darker, grittier version of this character, but again, it suits it very well for this iteration. What the story that they're trying to tell, Robert Pattinson is able to portray Batman very well. When he was cast, I didn't really have too many thoughts about it because, like I said, I was following Matt Reeves' journey through this. I knew the story that Matt Reeves, the director, wanted to tell. And once I heard his vision, way back 4 or 5 years ago, I was on board. I was like, okay, he seems to know what he wants to do with this character, so let's see what he does. And when he cast Robert Pattinson, I was like, okay, I trust you, man. I'm already on board with your vision. And if you think that Pattinson's the best, I'll believe it. I'll go with you. It's your vision. This Batman is unique in the sense that he says a lot without speaking. I think most of Batman's lines are delivered one-on-one to someone, but when he's in a room of people, he's very cautious to not say things, and his eyes and his body demeanor convey a lot. There are multiple scenes in this movie where Batman just looks at something and the characters around kind of understand what he's implying. And this is a very important part of Batman's character. He's able to convey a lot without speaking, in silence. And yeah, Pattinson did this amazingly. He does a really broody Batman as well. I want to make it clear to people who haven't seen this. This is a Batman-centered film in the sense that there is really no Bruce Wayne in there. Bruce Wayne kind of takes a backseat, and I kind of get it. For the story that they're telling here, I get it. Bruce Wayne sees Batman as an addiction. He is genuinely addicted to being this persona. And Reeves is able to show that in the film, and that's why Bruce Wayne doesn't really make an appearance, because the character itself doesn't care about his Bruce Wayne persona. He only wants to be Batman. Now let's do supporting cast. Okay, so we've got Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Selena Kyle. Great performance. They had amazing chemistry. It's not a spoiler to say that these guys are going to have some kind of romantic subplot or romantic element to them, and I'm really curious to see how it goes, because they've sprinkled the seeds really well in this iteration, because Batman itself can't believe that this is happening. Like, he hasn't met someone who can keep up with him in that capacity. And when he sees Zoe Kravitz Catwoman, it's nice to see how they build a rapport. There's scenes where they go on missions together. There's one really good club mission that I liked of theirs. But yeah, honestly, the chemistry works well. Zoe Kravitz is doing excellent. I love the costume that she's got. It's very do-it-yourself types, but it's also very functional and not too in your face. Jeffrey Wright as Gordon was amazing. He's always been a great actor, and I kind of like that in this film they show that he and the Batman have some kind of trust and rapport with each other. So he was great in this. He was pretty funny in this as well. Like, he had a little few minor scenes that genuinely, like, oh, that's pretty cool. The one character that gets sidelined is Alfred. Like, you don't have a lot of Alfred in this movie, and I understand again why that is, because like I mentioned, this is a very Batman-centric movie. It's not a Bruce Wayne movie yet. And Alfred is really connected to the Wayne side of Bruce's legacy. He's that human element to remind Bruce of where he comes from. And that's not a character arc that occurred in this film, so which is why Alfred kind of had to take a backseat. The amount that Alfred isn't in the film is the amount that screen time shared with Catwoman and Gordon, and I like it. I like that Batman is spending time with his entourage, with his external team. When this Bruce Wayne is looking into his past and trying to figure out his connections to his family and his legacy and building his name, Alfred is going to be an important part of that. But right now, when he's out there on the streets doing gritty work, he needs partners and teammates who are out there doing similar things. So that's fine. It's a little sacrifice he made for Alfred, but honestly, Andy Serkis is great. Okay, in terms of antagonists, I have like two major ones that you see in the trailer. Starting with Paul Dano as Riddler, absolutely iconic. Like, this character has done two things for me, given that I've seen him grow through the years. I've seen him in Jim Carrey, I've seen him in a bunch of different animated series. He has always been this jokester of a character, and what this film did is it really set him in a league of Batman's rogue gallery. Like, after watching this movie, you understand why the Riddler is a villain of Batman's. Like, he's, from the first scene when you see him pop up, like, it's a very beautifully shot, subtle scene, but you can see that expression of him, and immediately it puts you into perspective of, oh, this guy can kill you. And people have been making comparisons to the Joker, and I do see that they're both very psychological villains. They're both psychopaths, for example, but they have like a showmanship about them. Like, the Joker and the Riddler both enjoy this art of like taking Batman on a chase and guiding them through these weird sets of obstacles just to get to this point. Yeah, Paul Dano did for Riddler what Heath Ledger did for the Joker. They kind of solidified this villain as someone that can genuinely take down Batman. Not physically, but just in terms of what his skills are. The second thing is, I genuinely like how his riddles are a good element of the film. It's a dangerous element of the film. Because until now, the Riddler has always been about making riddles and jokes, and, you know, it's all funny. Like, you've seen Jim Carrey, how he does it, right? It's always comedic. But this one is genuine. Like, the riddles are an important part of the story. There's one scene with a thumb drive, which is genuinely super funny. Like, I love how the amount of thought that he put into this thumb drive joke and scene. But it works well. I can see why he's the Riddler. I can see him as a villain for Batman. I love the way Paul Dano has portrayed this character here. And the second villain, which everyone's probably going to talk about, is Colin Farrell's Penguin. First of all, I knew it was Colin Farrell before, but when watching the film, I was trying to look for Colin Farrell in that penguin costume, and I just could not see it. Like, it's just, he has blended so deeply into this actor and this costume design. It's really well done. Like, you don't really know who's playing the role. And I think the best way I can compare it is to Nebula in the Avengers and Endgame. Nebula, Karen Gillan's acting is so well done that you forget that Nebula is a human actress portraying the role. Like, she's so well portrayed as a cybernetic alien without feeling that you forget that, oh, that's a human actor playing that character. And the Penguin is the same thing. Like, you forget that there's Colin Farrell playing this role. He has become Penguin, and they've announced a spin-off series for him. I totally understand why, because there's so much story to tell around him. He's a fun character. He's the only, I think, character that has a bunch of levity and brevity in the film. Like, he makes the film lighthearted a bit. Every time he's on screen, there's a little bit of laughs. He's always aware of the situation that he's in, and he's gonna grow. He's definitely gonna grow in this series, and I'm really curious to see how. So hats off to Colin Farrell. It was amazing. It's not traditional personas that they're playing. It's kind of designed specifically for this film, but their character archetypes are very loyal to what the comics and the animated shows are like. It's you don't really feel like these guys are playing different people. Like Colin Farrell is playing the Penguin, not a Penguin we've seen before, but a Penguin that we know about. Now let's talk about the mythos, right? The Batman lore that surrounds Batman, because Batman is not just about the character. He's defined by the elements around him, right? For example, starting with Gotham City, I think this is one of the best representations of Gotham City that we've gotten so far. It feels lived in. That's the best way I can explain it. It doesn't feel like a city created for a film like Tim Burton did, or it doesn't just feel like another American city like Chicago or such, like in the Nolan movies. Gotham City here feels unique, it feels distinct and lived in. That's good because it's year 2 of Batman, so this should feel like a city that has its things going for it. Let's talk about the technology. The Bat tech, I really like that how grounded this was. Like there are certain techs I don't want to spoil, but there's the ways that he shows how he uses the technology that he has. First of all, it's very believable. It doesn't feel like the Dark Knight, for example, that cell phone technology, that sonar that's all over the city. That felt a little bit too much plot heavy. The technology he uses here, I'm like, oh, okay, that seems reasonable, like something that Batman would do. The gadgets are really fun and exciting. They're not a lot, but he does have the grappling hook. He does have a lot of his common, famous gadgets that he's used to. The Batmobile scene is incredible. There's one car chase scene. Every Batman film has a car chase scene with the Batmobile. This one is so incredible. From the moment that the Batmobile is introduced and then the whole chase, you've seen part of it's in the trailer. It's a really good scene. I love the car design. I don't know much about cars. It looks like a muscle car, which is spruced up with a rocket engine at the back. And interestingly, a lot more of this scene is set on bikes than cars. Like Batman spends a lot of time on his bike. Okay, I want to talk soundtrack and cinematography because these elements are really what make the film as gripping as possible. The score is by Michael Giacchino and the cinematography is by Greg Freezer. I hope I'm saying that right. They've done such a good job at how the lights and the colors and the motion and the sound really affects your experience. The first time the Batman theme kicks in, it's so good, especially if you're watching it in theater with surround more sound. Just amazing how it kicks in, it's gripping, it hypes. There are so many moments in this film that genuinely hype you up, mainly because of the sound around it. Honestly, Michael Giacchino has done amazing with this. And the cinematography is so beautifully done. Like, it's just a lot of black combined with other colors. Like, there's scenes with black and yellow, and there's a scene at the end with black and red or black and blue. And it's basically a lot of scenes in this film are just darkness and blackness, but there are sources of light around that are very distinct and kind of set the tone. There's these rooftop conversations that he has with Catwoman, and that you can see that's a different lighting there, mostly dark, but different kind of lighting. So yeah, they definitely deserve praise because it's really well done film design. And before I kind of wrap it up, I just want to mention the one line that kind of really solidifies this whole film together. It's this "I am vengeance" line that he has. It's pretty clear in the trailer that this is the portrayal of vengeance that he's going for in this. His theme, his iconic persona is of vengeance in this film. But it's beautifully done the way they twist the line on its head of this, how this line, "I am vengeance," starts in the film and how it ends in the film, and how we, the audience, and how Batman as a character see the difference and the change that has evolved from start to finish. I really want to talk about this in the spoiler review section because it's as impactful as Thanos' "I am inevitable." "I am vengeance" has a similar kind of gravity in this film. It's basically what covers the entire theme of Batman's arc from start to finish in this movie. And yeah, that's pretty much a lot of my thoughts. The only small nitpick I had was like the pacing and time of the issue, but again, since I'm a fan, I enjoyed it. Some people might find it a little too long, and this makes it a little less enjoyable on rewatch. I feel like the Dark Knight films are more fun to watch going back because there's a lot of like levity in them. This one is a hardcore psychological dark thriller, so you really need to hunker down and watch it because it's good. It holds you in, it pulls you in. And it was everything I was looking for. I'm really glad that we got another Batman now. It's been a long time. This one, it looks like a Batman that's going to stay for another decade. Like now, I don't know whether you like him or not. I hope you did because Robert Pattinson has done a really great job. Matt Reeves is amazing. The whole supporting cast is well established. This world has now been created and we can see Batman grow through it. What I think they're going to do is similar to the Spider-Man trilogy we just had, where Homecoming isn't the origin of Spider-Man. Like the three movies together are the origin. Like in Homecoming, he's still just a kid, still figuring it out. But by the end of No Way Home, he has become Spider-Man that we know and we love, right? And this is the same thing that's happening with this trilogy. Like this Batman is just someone who's new and he's figuring it out. But by the end of his arc, he will be a Batman that we know and love and who can be a member of the Justice League, who can take a Robin, who can hold down villains. Yeah, so he's going to grow and I'm excited for this growth. It's really very interesting as well. So, yep, that was it. Thanks for sticking along. Hit subscribe and like if you enjoyed it. This is my first time here, so I'm really gonna figure out things as I go. But let me know, like, did you guys see it? What do you think? Try to keep it spoiler free in the reviews. I'll probably do a spoiler review much later. All right, I'm post credits Dean. Thanks for sticking by. See you in the next one.